My mother called me crying and said, "He found out where you live. Run." I dropped the phone and looked at my fiancé, unable to speak. He had never seen fear on my face like this. He asked what was wrong, but I was already moving, grabbing my keys, shoving essentials into a bag. I managed to say 4 words. My father found us. My fiancé knew the basics about my childhood, knew I'd changed my name at 18, knew I hadn't spoken to my father in 12 years, but he didn't know the details. He didn't know why I flinched at loud noises, or why I slept with a knife under my mattress, or why I'd chosen to live in a city 3,000 miles from where I grew up. We were in the car within 4 minutes, pulling out of the driveway while I called my mother back. She was still crying. She told me he'd shown up at her house, that he'd beaten the information out of her, that she'd tried to resist but he'd broken 2 of her fingers before she gave him my address. She kept apologizing. I told her to call the police and get to a hospital. Then I hung up and started driving. My fiancé demanded answers while I navigated toward the highway. I told him my father was a violent man who had spent 8 years in prison for what he did to my mother and me. I told him about the beatings that hospitalized me 3 times before I turned 15. I told him about the night my father held a knife to my throat and told me he would kill me slowly if I ever tried to leave. I told him about escaping at 16, living in shelters, changing my identity, building a life he was never supposed to find. My fiancé went quiet. Then he reached into the backseat and pulled out the baseball bat he kept in the car. He said if my father came anywhere near me, he would protect me. I wanted to believe him, but he didn't understand what we were dealing with. My father wasn't just violent, he was patient, strategic, the kind of predator who planned and waited and struck when you felt safest. We drove to a motel 2 hours outside the city, paid cash, used fake names. The clerk barely looked at us. We locked ourselves in the room and I finally let myself breathe. My fiancé held me while I shook, while 12 years of suppressed terror came flooding back. I checked my phone obsessively. My mother had texted that she was at the hospital, that police were looking for my father, that I should stay hidden. I wanted to believe it would be that simple, that the police would find him, arrest him, put him back in the cage where he belonged, but my father had